excited that on the fly, in about a 24-hour notice, the 2017 Teacher of the Year, Sydney Chaffee. Sydney is a 9th grade humanities teacher in Massachusetts. And usually we work with the Teachers of the Year towards the end of their one-year tenure because we want some perspective on what did you learn traveling the country and internationally and being a liaison to many different states. But in this case, we're honored to have Sydney on board to kind of tell us what it's been like in the last couple of months and even weeks as she's been named and what that transition has meant and how it felt in her classroom. In interviewing Sydney is our Vice President of Policy at the Education Commission of the States, Dr. Brian Sponsler. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Brian.
There's no standing ovation for that? Thank you, yeah. I was going to say it's always fun, Jeremy, to confront your personal inadequacies in a professional setting. I have no musical talent to speak of. I was not a student of the year, so I'm going to be that other guy on stage, squeezed between greatness. So, Sydney, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it. As you can tell from the reception to your introduction, people are always excited to hear about the experiences of the Teacher of the Year and to get that teacher perspective engaged in our conversations here at Education Commission of the States. One of the things I just like to start with, I'm always curious about what it feels like to get an award, to be named something like the National Teacher of the Year. So if you could take us back to that moment that wasn't too long ago when you knew you'd been selected and share a little bit about what your first thoughts were, that would be great.
Sure, absolutely. I think what happened was I was sitting on my kitchen floor and I was playing Play-Doh with my daughter. She's 2.5, and I got the phone call and I'm pretty sure I said, "Are you sure?" Because it's an incredible honor and it's incredibly humbling to be selected from among these amazing educators that are here in the room with us today. So to be able to be selected to be a representative for them and to be a representative for the amazing educators all over our country is an honor, incredibly humbling. There are people in this room that I look up to so much because they're so good at what they do. And so it's a great responsibility to go forward and be a voice for my colleagues in this room and also across the country.
Yeah, well, as you think about how you want to use that platform and think about helping people understand what some of the challenges are, what some of the needs we have in the teaching profession, what are some of the issues that you're hoping to highlight over the next year to bring some greater attention to build awareness on, and really advocate for?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that we got to hear from student artists today because that's one of the things that I really want to talk about. In my school, I work with 9th graders and I teach humanities, but a really important part of my class is that we have a partnership with a local theater company in Boston, and every single one of our 9th and 10th graders goes out and learns how to act, and they put on plays and they perform. And so I've seen firsthand the power of the arts in our classrooms, and I've seen firsthand how powerful it is when we can teach in an interdisciplinary way, and we can weave the arts into the more traditional academic disciplines. And so that's one thing that I'm really excited to talk about and to tell stories about, because I've seen how powerful that can be for our children's learning. Another thing that I really want to talk about is the power of education as a tool for social justice. So how can we use education as a way to empower our students to find their own voices and make changes in the world? My third thing that I really want to talk about is making sure that all of our students and all of our diverse learners have access to really great schools, really great classrooms within a public education system. And then the fourth thing I want to talk about is making sure that teachers are seeing ourselves and being really honest about the fact that we are learners, that despite the fact that those of us who are in this room today have been named Teachers of the Year, we are constantly learning. And in my conversations with teachers, that's true across the board. We all see ourselves as learners, and we all see ourselves as people who have so much to learn. That's one of the things that we love about this profession, that it allows us to continuously learn and get better at what we do in the service of kids. So I'm really excited to just talk about that and be honest about that and be honest about the ways that I have messed up and the ways that I still need to learn things, because I think that's really powerful to talk about as a teacher who has a title.
Sydney, I think there's a couple of things embedded in that story I want to come back to. One is sort of thinking about the different pedagogies or ways that we can reach different types of learners. And those learners, you've talked about both students and teachers as being learners. I'm curious, as you think about the ways in which we can structure classrooms or we can structure professional development opportunities for teachers to continue to grow and learn. In either case, what are the different kinds of sort of pedagogies that you've seen work, whether it's through the arts or teacher training types of things that we can help people have that kind of holistic approach to their profession?
Yeah, absolutely. So just before lunch, I was in the session where we were looking at social and emotional learning, and I think that's something huge that we need to continue to educate ourselves about and continue to get better at. Trauma-informed practice. I know that Wendy from Delaware, that's her baby, wherever she is. So. And then also restorative practices. I think that all of those things, we can just see them as buzzwords, or we can see them as incredibly powerful practices that we can use to, again, surround our students and educate them in a holistic way and make sure that we have the tools that we need to get all of our students to succeed. Aside from that, it's not really aside because everything works together, but my school is part of the EL Education Network. And so it used to be called Expeditionary Learning, and it's a project-based, hands-on, experiential model. And I've seen it be so powerful for students because when we're trying to teach them in a vacuum, or when we're teaching something without context or without real-world relevance, it's hard for them to understand why it matters, and it's hard for those skills to stick sometimes. So in an EL model, we're making sure that what we're doing is grounded in something relevant, something authentic, something that fires them up, so that it sticks, and then they can apply it to other areas of their life. So I'm a history teacher, but I only teach 4 historical periods all year. But we go really, really deep on those historical periods, and the way that we talk about them is, in a way that we're building skills and we're building how to think about history so they can then apply that to any other period. And that for me is a super exciting way to teach, and it's an exciting way for kids to learn, and I think that there's a lot of promise in that.
Yeah, and is there a corollary to that for teachers themselves, right? I mean, when we think about how do we do professional development experiences for teachers, and one of the opportunities that you're going to have is to sort of see a bunch of different ways that works across the country. And obviously this year for yourself will be a tremendous growth opportunity, but I'm just thinking about the ways, we've changed sort of classroom interaction settings a lot. You mentioned a couple of different approaches. Are there things that we could do in a similar way, you think, for the teaching profession itself?
When I think about really effective teacher PD, it's teacher-led. And so I think as much as we can trust and empower our teachers to lead in terms of professional development, we're going to get better results from that, because teachers, we have a ton of expertise, we have a ton of knowledge, and we know as teachers what kind of PD works for us and what doesn't. And so I think that's my number one thing that I want to say to folks when they're thinking about planning PD is how do you engage teachers to make sure that it's really, really good. And then I think the other piece is just mentorship, really good mentorship for new teachers, and then ongoing mentorship and partnerships throughout our careers, because sometimes teaching can feel very isolated, but the best teaching is not isolated. It's, like I said before, you're a member of a community, and you're going to do your best work as a member of that community. So as much as we can build that sort of thing into PD and into the culture of what it means to be an educator, I think we'll get great results for kids.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for those suggestions. And I think in thinking about what we've sort of done historically with this Teacher of the Year conversation for our policymakers is give people a chance to sort of have one key takeaway that they could have. You have the opportunity and will continue to have the opportunity over the year to have a platform where people will listen. This group of education policymakers, from early learning folks to higher education and workforce development people, are really interested in what is happening directly in the classroom, if there's sort of a nugget that they should take away. So I think as we get ready to wrap up, I'd like to ask what would be something that you'd like to leave this audience with as they go back to whatever their professional role is.
So I have 2.
Okay,
I'm
two's
gonna
good.
squish them together and
That's
say them
right.
fast.
That's good.
So the first thing that I want to say is there are experts in this room. You've been in sessions with them. You've seen them stand up and ask questions. The Teachers of the Year are here, and we are ready to engage with you. So please make it your job to introduce yourself to the Teacher of the Year from your state or others, and please let's not just sort of introduce ourselves and have pleasantries, but really we want to engage with you. We want to dig in on these issues. So one thing that I would encourage you to do over the next 24 hours is ask a teacher of the year something that makes you a little uncomfortable or a little nervous, because we really do want to have informed discussions with you, and we really do want to dig in with you on these issues. At the end of the day, we're all here because we care about children, and we want to make sure that children get the best education they can possibly get. So that's my first piece of advice, is just really, really dig in and engage with us, because we are eager to engage with you. And my second piece of advice is, this is a little bit hard to say in June, but please come to our classrooms. We are so interested in having you in our classrooms. Our doors are open and we want you to come see what's happening in our schools. So my other piece of advice would be connect with a teacher of the year before you leave tomorrow, and make a plan for when you're gonna get into their room when we go back to school in the fall, because we welcome you with open arms. We want you to see what's happening in our schools, because there are amazing and beautiful things happening in our schools all over the country, and we want you to see it.
Well, thank you very much, Sydney.
Thank
That's
you.
great. Please join me in thanking Sydney for her comments.